What happens when the most unpredictable guest in television history meets the most diplomatic late-night host, and neither one backs down? You're about to witness one of the most explosive moments ever to hit late-night TV. A clash so intense it left producers scrambling, the audience in stunned silence, and one very famous guest storming off the stage. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. What do you think really sent this interview spiraling out of control? The Tonight Show studio buzzed with its usual pre-show excitement, but tonight felt different. Donald Trump was the main guest, there to promote his newest business venture, and everyone knew that meant unpredictability was guaranteed. Jimmy Fallon, known for his lighthearted humor and easygoing charm, had prepared his usual mix of jokes and games. The opening monologue went off without a hitch, the crowd laughing right on cue. But as Jimmy introduced his guest, the energy shifted. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Donald Trump," he announced with his trademark enthusiasm, though those who knew him well could sense the nervous edge beneath his smile. Trump strode onto the stage with confident energy, waving to a mixed reaction of cheers and scattered boos before settling into the guest chair. "Donald, great to have you back on the show," Jimmy began warmly. "Jimmy, always a pleasure," Trump replied, then smirked. "Though I have to say, your ratings? Pretty sad lately. Really sad numbers. I mean, when I'm not on Who's Watching, right?" Nervous laughter rippled through the audience as producers exchanged worried glances in the control room. Jimmy tried to recover. "Well, we're glad to have you here tonight. I know you've got some exciting projects to share." "Exciting doesn't even cover it," Trump cut in. "But first, what's with all the fake news stories about me lately? I mean, your writers, where do they get this stuff? The same people who said I couldn't win? The same people who said my businesses would fail?" The audience quieted instantly. This wasn't the breezy late-night banter they'd expected. Jimmy kept his trademark grin, but it was starting to look strained. "Well, we just try to keep things fun," he said carefully. "Comedy's about finding humor in current events, right? Speaking of current events, let's talk about your new— No, Jimmy, let's talk about this." Trump leaned forward. "You had me on before, you ruffled my hair, we had fun. Then your liberal media friends crucified you for being too nice to me, and now you're making up for it with cheap shots. Isn't that right?" Jimmy's face flushed. The room fell completely silent. No one could tell whether this was a scripted bit or a genuine meltdown. "Donald, that's not fair," Jimmy replied. "We treat all our guests with respect, no matter their politics. That's what this show is about. Respect? Come on, Jimmy. Last week you told 3 jokes about me. I counted them. My people counted them, and they weren't even funny. If you're gonna mock me, at least be good at it." In the control room, chaos. Some wanted to cut to commercial. Others whispered that ratings were spiking as words spread across social media about what was happening live. Jimmy took a deep breath. "Look, comedy's always been about poking fun at public figures. It's never personal, not personal," Trump shot back. "Everything's personal when you're talking about someone's reputation, their family, their life's work. You think hiding behind comedy gives you a free pass to spread lies?" "We don't spread lies, Donald. It's a comedy show, not a news network. But people get their news from you, Jimmy, from your jokes, your skits. You have influence, whether you admit it or not." The tension was electric. Fallon, known for avoiding political confrontation, was now face-to-face with it. "Maybe we should move on," Jimmy suggested. "Why? Because you're uncomfortable? Because it's too real for your sanitized little show? You media guys dish it out but can't take it when someone calls you on it." The crowd was transfixed. Phones came out despite staff trying to stop recording. "Donald, this isn't about avoiding anything," Jimmy said firmly. "People watch to laugh, not to see us argue." "Argue? You call it arguing when someone points out your hypocrisy?" Trump snapped. "You built your career on being the nice guy, the one who doesn't take sides. But that's all an act, isn't it?" Jimmy's jaw tightened. For the first time, his polished composure cracked. "An act?" he said, voice rising. "This isn't an act, Donald. I try to bring people joy, to give them a break from all the negativity in the world. That's not fake. That's real. Joy. You call mocking people and spreading rumors joy?" Trump retorted. "Your writers live on Twitter and call it truth. We don't spread conspiracies," Jimmy shot back. We make jokes about what's happening in the news. And that's when the last of the laughter disappeared, replaced by something no one expected to see on The Tonight Show: raw, unfiltered confrontation. There's a difference. Trump leaned forward, his voice dropping into that low, dangerous tone everyone who'd ever dealt with him recognized. Trouble was coming. Jimmy, let me tell you what's really happening in the news, he began. Your show, your network, your whole industry has turned into a propaganda machine. You pretend to be neutral, but every joke, every laugh, every smirk is designed to push an agenda. That's ridiculous, Jimmy shot back, forcing a smile. We're entertainers, not political operatives. Really? Trump pressed. Then why don't you ever make jokes about the other side? Why is it always the same targets, the same narratives, the same message? In Jimmy's earpiece, his producers were panicking, cut to commercial now, but something inside him snapped. Years of being called soft. Years of walking the tightrope between entertainment and politics. Years of staying silent to avoid controversy. It all came boiling up at once. You want to know why, Donald? He said, his tone suddenly sharp. Because some things aren't funny. Some things are too serious, too dangerous to joke about. When people's lives are at stake, when democracy itself is at risk, maybe comedy isn't the right response. The audience gasped. Jimmy Fallon, the king of feel-good television, had just taken a stand. Trump smiled slowly, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. There it is. Finally, some honesty. You just admitted what everyone already knows. You're not a comedian, Jimmy. You're an activist. Part of the resistance. Another cog in the machine trying to silence anyone who doesn't fit your narrative. I'm not trying to destroy anyone, Jimmy replied. I'm trying to protect... Protect what? Trump interrupted. Your version of the truth? Your idea of how the world should be? Who made you the arbiter of what's dangerous or what's funny? Jimmy pushed back his chair and stood up, something he had never done during an interview. The audience murmured in disbelief. Nobody made me anything, he said firmly. But I have a platform and a responsibility. When I see lies spreading, when I see people getting hurt, when I see the country being torn apart, I can't just sit here and pretend it's all a joke. Lies? Trump shot back. What lies, Jimmy? Be specific. Tell me exactly what I've said that's false. You want me to list them? On live TV? I want you to prove it, Trump said, leaning forward. You call me a liar. Show your audience the evidence. Don't hide behind vague accusations and applause lines. In the control room, chaos. The show was completely off the rails. Ratings were soaring, social media was melting down, and network executives were having full-blown panic attacks about the legal and PR fallout. Jimmy looked out at the audience, then at Trump, then into the cameras broadcasting the moment live to millions. He knew he'd hit a crossroads. Whatever he said next would define not just this interview, but his entire career. You know what, Donald? You're right about one thing, he said quietly. I have been too nice, too accommodating. I've let people come on this show and say things I knew weren't true because I didn't want to make waves. Because I wanted to be liked, because I thought that was my job. He paused, the room silent. But maybe it's not. Maybe entertaining people isn't enough anymore when the world is burning around us. Trump's expression hardened. The teasing tone was gone, replaced by cold precision. So you're admitting it, he said. You've been lying to your audience. The nice guy act was fake. You've been pushing a political agenda while pretending to be neutral. I'm admitting, Jimmy said steadily, that I've been a coward. I was afraid to stand up for what I believe in, afraid of losing ratings, sponsors, approval. But you can't keep everyone happy when some people are actively trying to hurt others. Hurt others? Trump scoffed. Jimmy, the only person getting hurt here is you. Your credibility, your reputation, your career. You're burning it all down in one night because you can't handle a real conversation with someone who doesn't agree with you. The studio went completely silent. Every camera stayed locked on the two men, one standing, one sitting, as the tension in the room reached its breaking point. The audience sat frozen in total silence, watching two men who had come to embody opposite sides of American media and culture face off in what felt less like an interview and more like a battle for the soul of entertainment itself. Maybe. Some things are worth destroying, Jimmy said quietly, if it means finally telling the truth. The truth? Trump echoed with a cold smirk. You mean your truth? The truth according to Jimmy Fallon and his corporate masters. You think you're being brave, Jimmy, but you're just a puppet. A very expensive, very well-trained puppet. Jimmy's hands were trembling now. Whether from fury or adrenaline, no one could tell. The usually easygoing host looked like a man who'd finally reached his breaking point. You want to call me a puppet? Fine, he said, his voice rising. But at least I'm not a puppet master, manipulating millions of people with lies and division. At least I'm not the one destroying faith in truth itself. Trump stood up, matching Jimmy's energy. The two men faced each other across the desk like gladiators in a televised arena. The audience caught as unwilling witnesses to a clash no one could have imagined. Faith in truth? Trump scoffed. Jimmy, you wouldn't recognize the truth if it walked up and introduced itself. You live in a bubble, surrounded by people who tell you exactly what you want to hear. When's the last time you talked to a real person? Someone who wasn't paid to agree with you? I talk to real people every day, Jimmy shot back. My audience, my staff, my family, they're real people who care about what's happening in this country. Trump laughed, low and dismissive. Your audience laughs on cue because there's a sign telling them to. Your staff tells you you're wonderful because you sign their paychecks. And your family... He paused. Well, I don't know them, but I'm guessing they're just as disconnected from reality as you are. The color drained from Jimmy's face, then returned in an instant. Bright red. The attack on his family had crossed a line. Don't you dare bring my family into this, he said, his voice shaking. Everything's connected, Jimmy, Trump replied, unflinching. Your privilege, your wealth, your bubble. You sit up here in your ivory tower making jokes about people whose lives you'll never understand. Privilege? Jimmy snapped. You're going to lecture me about privilege? You were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, Donald. You've never had to work a real job, never had to worry about paying rent or putting food on the table. But I've created jobs, Trump countered. I've built businesses. I've done things, real things, besides making people laugh at other people's expense. You've bankrupted companies, Jimmy fired back. There you go again, Trump said, shaking his head, repeating unproven allegations as if they're facts. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The tension in the studio was suffocating. Camera operators kept filming, but some crew members had stopped working altogether, too captivated to look away. Jimmy's voice dropped to a near whisper, but the quiet only made his words sharper. You want facts? Here's one. You came on my show tonight expecting me to fawn over you like I always do. You wanted me to laugh at your jokes, promote your brand, and send you off with your ego perfectly polished. But I'm done being your validation machine. Validation machine? Trump repeated, eyes narrowing. Jimmy, I don't need validation from you or anyone else. Oh, please, Jimmy shot back. You came here to use my platform to spread your message, just like you use every platform. You don't do favors, Donald. You do transactions, Trump smirked. At least I'm honest about it. You pretend this is all about entertainment, about bringing people joy, but it's really about power, isn't it? The power to shape opinions, to destroy reputations, to decide who gets to succeed and who gets torn down. Jimmy took a step closer. Maybe it is about power. Maybe it's time people like me stopped pretending we don't have it and started using it responsibly. Trump laughed, but the sound was cold, mocking, like a blade cutting through the air. Responsibly? According to who? You? Your network executives? Your political buddies? Who decides what's responsible, Jimmy? Anyone with a conscience, Jimmy said firmly. Anyone who cares more about truth than ratings. Anyone who understands that words have consequences. Trump's expression hardened. Then you'd better be careful with your words right now, because this meltdown of yours is being broadcast live to millions. Every accusation, every outburst, it's all out there. Jimmy froze for half a second, the reality crashing over him. The cameras, the audience, the millions watching this unprecedented collapse of late-night civility unfold in real time. Then something changed in his eyes. He straightened his shoulders. Good, he said quietly. Let them see it. Let them see what happens when someone finally stops playing games and tells the truth. Trump's voice dropped low. This isn't truth, Jimmy. This is a tantrum. This is what happens when someone who's been coddled his entire career finally meets a guest who won't kiss his feet. Jimmy's next words landed like a hammer blow. Get out. The air in the studio shattered. The audience gasped audibly. Even Trump blinked, momentarily thrown off by the cold authority in Jimmy's voice. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Jimmy said, his voice deadly calm. "Get out. Get off my stage. Get out of my studio. I'm done with this. I'm done with you." Trump's eyes narrowed. "You can't kick me off. I'm your guest. We have an agreement." "Our agreement," Jimmy replied, "was for a respectful interview about your projects. You turned it into a personal attack on me, my staff, my family, and everything I stand for." The audience didn't make a sound. Cameras rolled. Every second of the confrontation was being captured, an unedited, unfiltered implosion that would soon become one of the most talked-about moments in television history. "The agreement is void. This is a breach of contract. This is defamation. This is going to cost you everything, Jimmy." "Then so be it." At that moment, two towering security guards appeared at the edge of the stage, summoned by producers who had finally decided enough was enough. The chaos had gone too far. Trump glanced at them, then turned back to Jimmy, his face carved into a mask of cold fury. "You're making the biggest mistake of your career." "Maybe," Jimmy said, steady now. "But at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror tomorrow morning." Trump straightened his tie, composure returning like armor. His parting words landed heavy, less a threat, more a vow. "This isn't over, Jimmy, not by a long shot." As security escorted him off stage, Jimmy stood alone behind his desk, facing an audience frozen between disbelief and awe. The silence was so thick it felt alive. Finally, he leaned toward the microphone. "We'll be right back after this commercial break." It would become a defining moment in late-night television, when two of America's most recognizable figures dropped the act and let the world see the raw truth beneath the smiles. So what do you think? Did Jimmy finally say what needed to be said? Or did he cross the line? Let me know in the comments below.